Welcome to Andrew Cardno Online, where data meets decision-making in the world of gaming and beyond. Each episode, your host, Andrew Cardno, renowned innovator, technologist, and data plumber, dives into the insights, trends, and strategies shaping the future of casinos, enterprises, and digital transformation. Whether you're a leader, regulator, or data enthusiast, you'll find fresh perspectives and actionable ideas right here. Don't forget to visit andrewcardno.com for exclusive content, resources, and more. Now let's join Andrew for today's conversation.
Well, hello, buddy.
Hi, Andrew. How are you?
Very good, thank you. This is Andrew Cardno and Andrew Cardno Online, and the idea is to have some fun, explore some interesting and maybe challenging topics. I know, buddy, you and I don't agree on everything, which is part of the joy of it, right? The part of the joy of the space we're in. And I just thought I'd start with, buddy, I know you've done TV and radio. And tell us a little bit about that, maybe. And then I'd love to share the story of, how we've come to know each other. It's this amazing journey together. Like, we've done so much stuff over what is almost...
It's been a while. It's been a while, yes.
Too long.
No, I enjoy it. In fact, the thing I like is I think both you and I are still excited as though it was the first day we ever got together. So I'm turning my sound a little here. So background, essentially after graduating, I got a degree in journalism out of the University of Nevada, Reno.
So you are, in fact, a journalist.
Yeah. Believe it or not, a card carrying. I actually went to school for 3 years in electrical engineering first. But then went in the Navy because I skied too much and came back and did journalism and really enjoyed it. But it's noticeable that I was in Reno where gambling existed since I was a little boy. I used to eat, go into the restaurants and mark Keno tickets with my mom and play it. So, I've been in the casino business, I say, most of my life, but I finally got paid for it a little later. But after that, I got a job in Reno with some friends who, my first was I got a TV job. I had hair then, Andrew, so I could be on the air and things were working well.
You were a TV, tell us what you did on TV.
Well, I started as a reporter, so I would do all those stories. Let's go to Buddy Frank now, blah. And I would be doing that. And then later in my career, near the end, I was the weekend anchor. And then I became the managing editor. I actually don't think I've ever had a job that was more fun than being a TV person. But unlike some of the superstars you see today, you don't make very much money being a TV reporter in a local market. But I really enjoyed it. You got to know everyone. And I had a good time and learned some great skills. The main one being curiosity,
Yeah, I get
pay
that.
you in
That's
TV
sort of
to find out and learn stuff. And I think that's a trait that really helped me because I know you have the exact same trait.
I do have that problem.
Endlessly
curious.
It's a problem. You keep wanting answers to stuff. Sometimes there are no answers, but you keep trying. But a friend of mine who had been working with TV before me, his name was Terry Oliver. He got in an ownership group, was working for Howard Hughes Corporation and managing casinos in Las Vegas and one in Reno. And then they bought one in Reno called the Fitzgeralds. It's not there anymore. It's been sold. But I joined them as a marketing person. And we soon acquired 2 more casinos in Reno, one in Las Vegas, and then eventually about 6 to 8 all around the country. So that was my start. And I was in marketing. And suddenly one day came in.
You were in marketing. Hold on. I mean, you were in slots.
Back when all of marketing really was how many TV spots, newspaper ads, and billboards, along with radio spots you could do. That was about it. Or tons of snail mail. But he
People
just
still
came
do
in one
snail
day.
mail, by the way. By the way, it still works.
Yeah, all of that. But TV, radio, and newspapers, not so much, but billboards, mail, and those sorts of things are still big. But he came in one day and said, "You want to be in charge of the slot department?" I said, "I know virtually nothing about slots other than marketing them." And they said, "You'll learn." So actually started by working the floor.
Who's he? Who said that to you?
Pardon?
Who said that to you? Who said run slots? To the marketing guy?
Yeah. So you got to remember what really benefited me was that background in double E because I knew a bit
Right.
about computers and technology. Kind of was a hobby of mine as well. Um, and that really benefited me because slot machines then were still mechanical, but right on the verge of switching over to becoming digital devices and being connected. So, it's really benefited from having a systems background and a little double E background and knowing a little math and then marketing. If there was a shortcoming among slot directors of my generation, it's what most of them didn't have a math background or technology background. Today, most of them do, but they certainly didn't when I started. And so that allowed me to progress really well. Worked in Reno at several different properties over the years. And then finally, and this is when I met you, I got a job at a small San Diego casino called
Not
Viejas.
so small, actually.
Well, small if you consider it in respect to Pachanga, where I finished my career.
That's right.
But not a bad casino, a really nice operation there. And I think I was there a year or two, and I'd always gone to the World Gaming Congress convention, but then they changed the name to G2E.
That's right.
And I had a philosophy I always told everyone about those shows. I said, on the first day, don't go to the big booths, they're way too busy. On the first day, go around the outside edge and talk to all the really small vendors. And I go back in one corner, and there was a guy at a card table who had quite an accent, and it was Andrew Cardno. I think you just got off the boat, and you were back there, and
I hadn't even moved to America at this point, and
yeah,
I just I wouldn't. I'd say I was pre-boat, but you were right about the card table. We had
yeah,
a card table,
and I
and I couldn't
talked about
afford porters. So I
yeah,
remember when I arrived, I thought, how bad can it be to carry all this gear across the floor? I remember walking into the floor going, how? Because I come from like a place population 2,000, right? And there was
yeah.
20,000 people in this room or whatever, right? I'm looking out there, I'm like, I got to carry this thing for like 3/4 of a mile. And there was a guy with a hand truck. He said, no, that's Union.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so there I was.
We
Yeah,
chatted, and you had the product called CompuDyne, and
that's right.
you've been with other companies since, certainly now QCI, but Viz Explorer and stuff. But
I just bought Viz
CompuDyne
Explorer, so it's the
essentially
same. Yeah,
is still at the heart of what you have today. You had
it
some of
is
the
for
good
slots. Yeah,
tools.
yeah.
So way deep inside the kernel is still CompuDyne. And I'd talk to you, and when I got back to my home base, apparently the IT guy had also said hello to you. And in those days, I think IT guys liked your product a lot as well. And
I
I
still
think I was
do.
one of
Come
your
on.
first customers, along with
You
Harris
were.
and
Actually,
myself,
that's Harris and Viejas
at
were
least in the U.S.
in
Yeah,
the US. Yeah, Crown Casino in Australia, where I
yeah.
won the Smithsonian Laureate, and Viejas and all of Harris, like all, I think it was 24 casinos at the time. And it was, it was amazing. I had these rooms I had to build with huge clusters of computers. Like I think your IT guy probably spent $500,000 buying hardware so we could run all this stuff, right? It was
Yeah.
massive, right? Massive infrastructure. Um,
In fact,
I
that's
don't.
one of the most interesting thing. I later I was at VA House for about 5.5 years, and then I moved slightly north to Pachanga, and it
How
was
many
so
games do
in.
they have, buddy?
Pardon me?
How many game machines do they have at Pachanga? Like
Well, today they have 5,500. They're the
5,500.
third largest casino in America, right behind Yavama, which has um, about 7,500, and behind Windstar with 10,500. But the interesting thing at Pachanga, I remember we went in there, and all the machines in those days, Andrew, as you know, were hooked up with serial cable, meaning they were all kind of daisy
Oh,
chained
God.
and with a couple of telephone wires in
It's
between.
amazing it ever worked, actually.
Yeah. So I had a really good IT director still there, John Kenefick at Pachanga, and a very great tribe. And we went into them one day and said, we want to change our whole floor to Ethernet, high speed wiring. And
And
it
they said,
required, we
what's
got to buy a
that?
bunch of servers and a bunch of wire. And they said, well, how much will that make us? And we went, well, it won't make you any money at all at the first, but in the future, we'll make a lot more. Well, that argument would not have worked in corporate America, but with tribal casinos, they think about the future. They don't think about what's next quarter. They tend to think, how will this help my kids and my grandkids and their grandkids? And so Pachanga invested several $1,000,000, and I think we were one of the first high-speed floors in the whole country. And that just helps not only your slot reporting, but products like your own, I don't think could have
Better
existed
data.
if we
Yeah.
were still on that slow data transfer mode. And it just led to a wonderful career. So I was fortunate to always kind of be on that bubble ahead of technology. And thankfully, I worked for some great tribes and some great IT directors that allowed me to mess around with that a lot. It's made all the difference in the world. But because I started in that old dedication of serial cable and everything else, I realized that I had a hard time convincing other slot directors to look at data. But then we got these people out of college who just looked at data and never went down on the floor. And I think you'll agree, you got to have a balance of both.
Yeah. I've optimized a lot of floors, buddy, and I'm the first thing I love to do when I understand the data a bit is walk around and just look at the floor and understand the layout, because gaming floors are not science; they're an art.
You
And
have to.
you have to really understand the art of the floor.
There's
The
an old story.
opportunities in the art is just huge. Yeah.
There's an old story I used to tell. I think it's based in truth, but it had to do with friends at Caesars who were real data people at the time, and they were running the slots out of the corporate office for most people. And one of my colleagues in Southern California got a note, said, move machines from location 4, move them over to zone 7. And the slot director got a nasty note about a month and a half later and says, why haven't you moved those machines from zone 4 to zone 7? That wasn't a suggestion, it's an order. And the guy said, well, should I just take a chainsaw and cut off the top 2 feet of the machines? Because the ceiling over there in zone 7 isn't tall enough. And that's one of the big lessons in gaming. You got to put all the specs in. And most slot systems at that time didn't have ceiling heights or cabinet heights. So
It's a really big issue these days. Yeah. Like if you've been into any casino recently, you're walking around, it's like I'm in New York, like these towering giants of machines that proliferate.
I think it's good. It creates a thing, but it just shows you that you got to be on the floor sometime to look at every element of it.
You have to. Yeah, you have to experience it. You have to think about it.
Yeah. Now,
put it together with the data.
Early on, I had people who weren't even convinced about data. And the other side of that is I used to do this experiment. I would walk around the casino, especially if we had newer change people, and I'd take them the Megabucks machine, and I said, is this thing very popular? And they go, no, no one's ever there. And then I went, that machine's doing 3 times house average. And they went, you're kidding. And I went, no. But what it was, and I think everybody knows this, with Megabucks, it's not a very loose machine, but it's one of those that you can become an instant millionaire, so it appeals to lots of people. So it has short time on device and great appeal, but it's not crowded every day like a Buffalo might be. So you realize that you got to look at data too, not just trust your eyeballs.
And it's not one dimension. It's at least.
Yeah, and now with the kind of data that's coming out of QCI, you can really fine tune things that you never would have imagined you could see or feel. So you got to have that nice balance of both. And I wrote an article about 2 months ago, Andrew, and I think you read it I actually wrote one 4 months ago, said, could AI replace the slot director? And when I first did that, Chat 3.0 was out, 4.0 was thinking about coming out. And the results were pretty crude. 3 or 4 months later.
You tried recently?
Yeah, I did it. I reran it. And now it's pretty darn good. And what I'm saying is, and the quote was, will AI replace you as slot director? And I said, now, if you don't keep up and you don't use these tools and learn to use these tools, yeah, it will replace you. if you learn to use them, you'll become even more valuable. And
That's
because
a
you
really
still need,
profound observation, right? Like,
yeah.
I have I think I like to say, or something similar, but maybe more brutal. Like, there are two kinds of people in the future: those that use AI and unemployed. And
Sadly may be true. I'm hearing lots
oh,
of negative stories, and I tell people,
oh,
don't give up on it. Look at it, learn to use it, be aware of its limitations, but learn to use it, and it'll be the most valuable tool in your quiver. The parallel is people when I first started who were scared of computers. I went from entry level to executive because I knew how to run a spreadsheet. That sounds funny, but a lot of my colleagues didn't, and they went,
oh,
"You
right. It's
mean
the
we
same
don't have to
pattern.
use an
Yeah, yeah,
eraser to change the budget?" No, you just
yeah,
change this
yeah.
one element. So here's a tool that's like the revolution of computers, at least small computers, that you
I
can
completely
use
agree
to,
with you. I
yeah, to really
completely, yeah.
enhance your career.
Yeah, I sometimes think, go back to the 80s, and you could probably tell me, but like, there was fax machines, and
Yeah.
that's how messages went between businesses. And I bet there's a bunch of people who've never used a fax machine. There may be some people who don't know what they are now, probably quite a few. The remarkable thing is email completely replaced them. And the World Wide Web completely replaced like company brochures and things. Like, it's just like everyone's got to have a web page. And mobile phones came along and completely replaced, or largely replaced, landlines, if not completely. But then there was this period, I'm going to say 20 years, long enough for everyone to forget what a big transformation that you were describing is like. And now we're at another one of these big transformations. And sometimes I think this one is too fast. I suspect people thought the last one was also too fast, right? But
Yeah.
we've had this period. Most people in the workforce have never experienced a total technology transformation. I don't know if you want to comment on that, but I think
Well,
it's
I, I,
really
I couldn't
big.
agree more. And again, we're hearing all these funny little negative stories. There's a court case that's just happening here where some lawyer filed an appeal and he cited 10 legal references and cases. Turns out they were all false. They came off
God.
the AI and the guy had just made it all up. And so this lawyer's facing penalties and everything. So I hear stories like, and everybody
No, I
says,
think he
don't use
lost his
AI.
Australia. Is that he lost his job? I think he might have been
It's
disbarred
happening in
for it.
Reno right now. There's a case on it. Um,
Really?
and
Wow.
so what I'm saying, hey, it's no different than computers. If you put bad data in and got bad data out,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
still
yeah.
have to use some common sense. But if you do, and he would have used that responsibly and checked their source. I'm actually using several programs on I still write, Andrew. That's something I didn't mention. I do a lot of writing because of my journalism. And so every once in a while, I'll ask Chad GPT to help me. But then I'll also run it through Claude and Perplexity to say, is it making any fact errors over there? And then I'll open a thing called books. I don't know if you remember those,
I,
and magazines and check some of the sources. So you've got to use the tools responsibly. But if you do, what a resource. And those who don't are just going to get left behind.
I think, yeah. So I have the same thing. I write a lot as well. And if I'm using generative AI to do research, which is, I mean, it's insanely good, right?
Yes.
Like, let's get it right. It's impossible to compete with it. But if I'm using it, I will always, I have learned how to dialogue to tell it to tell me where to check the stuff, right? And I've learned part of, this is learning the skill of prompting, right? Like, how do you prompt? How do you communicate and manage these things? And that's like the sort of the one shot. Tell me that. Give me this. That's a little bit like putting your life on the line by closing your eyes and crossing the street. Like, you might, maybe sometimes it'll work, but you might want to look. I know it's a little slower, and you have to learn in this generative world how to engage with these agents in a way where when you get it out, it really is helping you to do the checks and giving you the references. And I think I've done so much of it. I think that I've become very skilled at prompting, and prompt engineering and very used to communicating with them. And I think that's the same as your spreadsheet skill, right? And those that don't learn that are going to be, it will be impossible to compete with me. But I don't know about you, but I would say sometimes I'm between 10 and 50 times more productive today than I was 3 years ago. And it's exhausting, but that's staggering.
I'll give you another real world casino example. I spent the bulk of my career analyzing slot machines. Um,
I know,
and
I was there with you.
yeah, but take the point of I only analyze slot machines because those are the numbers I had. And then I had data over here in this other system that tell me what players were doing, but I only concentrated on what slot machines were doing. And that's so flawed, as you now know.
Oh,
And
I really know that's flawed. Yeah, it won't
yeah,
work.
but I didn't
Well,
know that
I would say it would
originally.
be about 10% worse revenue to the casino.
Oh,
Like it's
in
about
some
a
examples,
10%.
even far more.
Yeah,
I can
my
tell you the
experience about
example.
10. Yeah, okay. It could be
Well,
more, but
let's consider two different kinds of machine. One that wildly popular looking machine, but thousands of people come in and put $1 in it. And then you have this other machine that's popular, but each player puts $1,000 in it. When you're just looking at slot machines, it's hard to tell the difference between those two. But guess
oh
what? That
yeah,
one they're only putting $1 in, not playing more. Pretty soon, once everybody's played it,
it'll fall off the
but
cliff.
in the
Yeah,
old days, you probably bought 50 of them before you realized that. With the
yeah,
tools
that's right.
today, you can look at time on device. We could always have looked at time on device and which players are playing it, but it would have taken us about 3 months to analyze one machine.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
now you can roll all that data together and you can say, what is there devotion to that machine? Do certain players like that machine more than others? Do players spend long time on it? How the active? The big example I use, a good friend of mine and one of the brilliant guys in gaming is named Joe Kamikow. He's a designer, legendaries in the Hall of Fame, works pretty much exclusively with Aristocrat now, but was with IGT. He designed a wonderful machine called Britney Spears. It was in a double arc cabinet, so it was taller than any machine, and it was pink with a giant Britney Spears and had great music. Almost impossible to walk by that machine, Andrew, without playing it.
Right.
But what I noticed every time I physically walked in the casino was there was always a different player on it. Even if I'd walk by 5 minutes later, there's a new player.
Yeah, yeah.
And I went upstairs and looked at my old data and realized time on device was pretty low. I went and looked at the win per unit, one of your favorite and hated metrics at the same time. It was fabulous on that machine.
Yeah.
But you could also tell that machine wasn't long for the world because once people played it, they didn't play it a second or third
Well,
time.
that's a really good example, right? One of the big decisions is, do I get more of these games? It's a huge decision. And so here you say, oh, the win per unit's really high, therefore I should get more of them.
Well, you
That
mentioned that you and I disagree. And
oh,
way back in your past, before you had all this data, you told me once, I can tell if a machine's going to be any good within the first day. And I went, sometimes you need a little more data. And you're there now too. In fact, you're ahead of me in that curve because we started looking at players and their patterns and all the other factors related to play. And you know that it maybe takes more than a day, but you get a lot of clues in that first day, like the devotion, like the things. And
yeah,
each
yeah, that's
day
right.
that data becomes validated. And the other part of I don't think people talk enough about is machine learning, meaning your program and all the programs like it, they see data and the next day the data may be different, so they learn and then they learn the next day and learn the next day, and they do that sadly much faster than you and I, and they learn and get
I tell
better
you where
and
that
learn
came
those.
from, that
Yeah.
short observation period. It came from, I was working at Crown Casino, like just learning this completely new. And it's kind of a funny story. I was there with Don Burke, who was, if you people may have heard of the big whale gambler Kerry Packer. Don was Kerry Packer's deal maker and ex CFO. And so I was sitting in the room with Don, and he was negotiating. I was there to help with the implementation. And he bought Crown Casino for $600 million. And I remember he told me never to tell anyone. So I think he's long left us now by 15 years. I feel safe telling people now. But I was there, and I'll never forget, like I've never, watching a $600 million deal go down like that at that time. I mean, that was the 25 years ago, that was an enormous amount of money. Today, in their money, it was even bigger. It was like crazy. And I remember, and then he turns around, he says, now you have to make it profitable. I was like, oh, and I'd never been in a casino before, basically. And so I'm walking around this casino, like, I don't know what to do. And they sort of said to me, you can do anything you want. I was like, oh, okay. Now, that was really unusual. I know now that's not something that would normally happen. Some guy from New Zealand, the Outbacks in New Zealand, turns up in this huge mega casino in Australia and, oh, you can make any change you want to the gaming floor. So I had a totally fresh look at everything. And I was looking at games, and we would make so many changes, and I didn't realize I would just be moving games around. I was walking on the floor. We were really working at it hard with the team there. It wasn't just me. There was other guys. And we would make a change, and I didn't realize that they had to just double or maybe even triple the number of slot techs they had, because we were generating so much work, because we were doing so many thousands of changes. Well, one of the things I figured out is that you could take a floor, change it, and if it didn't work, put it back, and it would snap back to where it was before. And that learning, that was my like 1 day observation. We normally would wait a week. If you could see that something you didn't work, and you 1 week later you just put it back. And I found it so fascinating that, because I spent a lot of time looking at this, it was a completely different group of customers on the put back to from before to after, if you like, that would behave in the same way. And I still find it fascinating that it's like the pattern of play on the floor is the same with different groups of customers. And so that was the learning about aesthetics and layout and pricing. And that's where that 1 day came from. And it encourages you, when you learn this, it's, oh, we can experiment and be ready to put it back, and it's okay. And it really worked. We improved their revenue by, goodness, like 75 million after tax in 7 months or something.
There's a double story to that lesson you learned, and that's check your ego at the door. Because some people will make a change and they'll stick with it because they made it, even though their data is saying,
oh, yeah,
that was a mistake. And so it's very important. I'm a firm believer. I think out of the tech industry, there was an old saying that, hey, fail early and fail often and fail early and change.
Fail fast, yeah.
And again, that's one of the best ways to learn in life and everything. But that's why I mentioned machine learning, is because that can do it on all kinds of little decisions and learn and make adjustments and make your data and your conclusions better and better. Human beings,
I think it's best.
Some of us are slow at that.
I think it's best used to help people. Like, come up with ideas, show people patterns that are more difficult. And I like to think about it in layers, right? You go into a property that's optimized on win per unit per day. Okay. Let's level 0. Okay. What's level 1? Well, we're going to use other more sophisticated first derivative views of it. We're going to use things that the customers can see and experience, and walk through the levels. And there's so much low-hanging fruit on each level. When you get to machine learning, it's definitely a space for it, but it tends to be further down the pipe. There's just, if you're starting out with just a floor that's been optimized with actual or theoretical win per day or something like that, if that's your primary driving metric, your first step is, let's do a price yield optimization, which is huge to a floor. It'll change all of your decisions, right? Or largely, will influence most decisions. And you don't need machine learning for that. You could, it might help you, but it'll probably just tell you to change everything.
I was
I guess
talking.
more subtle and harder as you get further up the stack.
Bally purchased one of your products, some of the CompuDyne material, and they added an element to it called predictive analytics. And I was very close to the guy who was doing the development work. And so we put all our data in. It's like the first property that was testing their predictive analytics. And we had a machine called Bally 2510X bonus pays. Very wildly popular in $2, $5, $10. In fact, 4 or 5 times the house. So he ran this
Wow.
program and it came back and it said, you got 2 banks of those machines that are in the quarter denom. You need to switch them to $5. And I went,
Whoa. I don't
that's
think so.
that's obvious. They'll make more money. And then I went, why haven't I done it? And I did, and I made a lot more money.
You
It's
did?
sometimes, oh yeah, sometimes there's stuff right in
Five
front of you.
dollars?
Change the denom from quarter to $5
Five
because the
dollar.
data was saying that the
Whoa.
$5 machines were making a fortune.
Which
But
is this at Pachanga?
yeah, I did it at Pachanga. But
Wow.
what
Yeah.
was incredible to me was sometimes things are obvious and they've been in front of your face, but you didn't know
Right.
them. And
Yeah.
that's why when you get one of these new AI-based tools, they won't let you make stupid. You can still make stupid mistakes if you ignore it, but you can see it and look at the data and go, oh, yeah, maybe I ought to do that. So those kinds of lessons have been so invaluable to me. Look at your data. Whenever I talk to people, I'm a huge fan of a program, one of the elements of your program called the heat maps. And I don't know if
Yeah,
everybody
me
knows
too.
you
Yeah.
started as a map maker, essentially. There's a
Oh,
highfalutin
a,
name
ca-
for
oh, a
that.
cartographer, in fact. Yeah.
Cartographer.
Yeah.
But you have a product that puts a map of your floor and shows where all the machines are. And what's revolutionary is you can use colors and flare outs like a heat map to indicate different things like coin in or handle pulls or win, whatever. And an average slot director can look at that map and just instantly see things that are boneheaded, why didn't you do it kind of things instantly. Now, a lot of people say that only tells me that, and I went, yeah, but then you can use the tools to do it. And don't you want to know right away if some machine's malfunctioning or some machine's got a ridiculous high level of free play and stuff without looking at a 200-page report and going, heat map lets you see those kinds of anomalies, good and bad, instantly, and then you can dive in wherever you want. And so uh, I got to credit an awful lot of my success in my career was using that. I don't know if people know it,
Thank
but
you.
in the morning when I'd come in, I'd get settled, all the kinds of things, say hello, do the thing, and then I got up the heat map. And I just looked at it for about 10 minutes, and then the rest of my day went on. I can't tell
Wow.
you how valuable that is because it
10
just
minutes
gives
each day.
you,
That is interesting. That really
and
is. Yeah.
it's the old picture's worth 1,000 words. It is. And just instantly gives you a feel of some of the broader dynamics of the floor. Now, ton of devil in the details, but it tells you where to look and where to start your inquiries, what to do, and particularly in the case of fraud or malfunction or bad settings, almost instant. Whole bank of green machines or red machines, and all of a sudden there's a purple or black one. Tells you you better look at what's going on.
Yeah, that is. I didn't know you did that, buddy. Look at it for
Oh,
10 minutes every day.
my
That's
entire
fascinating.
career. And you had a heat
Really?
map in CompuDyne, you had a
In
heat
Viz
map in
Explorer?
Viz Explorer, and now you even got a supercharged heat map in QCI. In fact, I have an iPad over here that, it's just so fast. Used to be the only negative with QCI, if I'd run a sophisticated animation, it took a while.
Not QCI, you mean Viz.
Well,
CompuDyne.
but CompuDyne. And you try to run an animation showing you what happened by the hour, and you might as well get a copy of War and Peace and read it. Well, but now
Oh,
it's
it
just,
took 3 hours. You kidding me?
oh yeah, and now it's instant. And so you
Oh,
make
I know.
changes,
Yeah.
and
It
it's
took 3 hours
incredible.
on $1 million hardware stack
Yeah.
running these things, and now we can do it like GPU programming, graphics programming in the web browser. Like, I feel like I might have been a little bit ahead of my time. I,
Well,
it's just I've always felt that the quality. This is talk about so much of management, but the quality of our decisions are what defines our success. and it's impossible almost to say, oh, it's worth this much or it's worth that much. But if you're making better decisions all the time, you will have more success. And if you've got a good understanding of your floor and a good understanding of the data around it, you're going to make better decisions. You have to. It's a simple truth. And just looking at a spreadsheet, you can't see it. You can't see the impacts of layout. You can't understand that much data. It's not humanly possible. You can organize it and sort it. And look, I'm a numbers guy. I can work my way through it. But when I'm looking at a heat map, the nuances and flow of the money and how it fits together, there is just a better understanding. It's better. So whilst it's possible to do with a spreadsheet, you're not doing it in 10 minutes every day, but on a heat map, you can see all of your floor and understand it all in, as you said, 10 minutes a day. And then you're just making better decisions. You're running your floor better. You're seeing the outliers. You're dealing with things. And I like sometimes, buddy, to think about it like a time window, right? Like I will notice a machine that didn't work very well or is going down after 6 months, or is it 3 months, whatever it is, right? Some period of time. And by the way, these patterns are hard to spot and they change over time. So it's a different pattern. So it's hard to get a set of rules that'll tell you what to do. If I shorten that, and that was my discussion about one day, right? Now, one day is a bit extreme. One day is very extreme. So I don't think I'd say that today. But like if you shorten it where you're getting a really good understanding after a week or two, and your decision cycle is really responsive to what's going on the floor. And that just, I've seen it work. I saw it work with you driving the revenue at Pachanga. It was amazing. And you would fill every little space. It was amazing going in there with you. Like, oh, I figured out how to get this bit to work and I'm working on this because you're past the big picture. Oh, I need more of these games. It's okay. What do you do now? What do you do with the next round of decisions that are going to make your gaming floor better? I don't know what you think, buddy, but it's...
What I love is even though that program is God, when was it I talked to you on that card table? 20 years ago or so? That program continues to get slightly better. Like at first, it was just those flare outs. So you could assign coin in or you could do a new one assigning win per device. But then you made the machine itself be a different color. So now the flare out could be coin in and the machine could be win per device. But now with the latest program, I think the one that's coming out soon, you added a little dot in the middle, plus some stats. You can look at 4 different things at once. Why is that important? Well, if you only did win per device, you're going to get rid of all your video pokers because they're not so good. But if you take a look at handle polls, you're going to realize that's one of the most popular games in our casino. So you can balance those two instantly with a look. Now, your report would show you
game occupancy even better than handle polls because video poker is slow.
Devotion.
Right.
All kinds of things. And the other thing is, our industry your partner is Dr. Ralph Thomas, and that doctor part really stands for he wasted all his early youth being a math guy. And your book is called, I think, The Math That Gaming Made, and some people...
You mean the 12 books?
Yeah, the 12 books, the huge ones. And I think a lot of people wouldn't ever consider buying that book because the word math is in there. And some of my colleagues...
That's what I thought. I actually didn't write it expecting to sell any, but I just wrote it. Ralph and I wrote it to really help ourselves as much as anything, to learn. Like the process, there's so much to learn about this space, right? And so as we develop the ideas, we'd write them down. That process, that formalization, it's almost like being an academic, I guess, but that formalization really helped us. But what we discovered is that people really wanted it. Like, it's like, actually, lots of people are buying the book. It's amazing. Like, I much more than I ever expected. Like, the interest is really there. So maybe we were part of the transformation of the industry to be interested in math. I don't know. Maybe people always were, but I get the opposite reaction now everywhere.
You ought to have a subtitle saying you don't really need to know a whole lot about math to read this book. My point was because our industry's exploded, a couple of people in our industry seem to be short of just basic math. And the extreme example I use, I had one general manager, I won't mention him, but he called me in and he said, listen, I want you to get all these machines, all of them above house average. And I went,
So,
you don't know much about averages. But the other example is a simple one, and I've heard you talk about this, and that's win per device. And I know people who say they have 4 games in, and the games are doing terrific. So I said, we got to buy 8 more of these right now because all the numbers look wonderful. And then they called me back in and said, hey, the win per device dropped.
oh yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, but guess what? If you do a simple multiply the device times the number of things, we're making more money. And those kinds of simple
Maybe, yeah.
math decisions do challenge some people. And again, the newer AI based programs are letting you instantly say, no, that's still a pretty good decision despite your lack of understanding of math. So I just love those kinds of things. And especially, I know some people get upset because win per unit per device is still very important, a very important metric.
It's the
But you
outcome you
can't
want.
just look at it,
Yeah.
you know.
No, it's an outcome. I like to say with win per unit, we're doing all sorts of predictions and recommendations and things like that, and game change analysis and all these things. They're all really important, right? But in some ways, the real way to think about a gaming floor, the ultimate way, if you like, where can you get to? What's the ultimate gaming floor? What's the best possible management practice? And it really twists the whole thing, saying, now I'm running a business for this kind of product. What are the things that a business would do for that kind of product? And when I worked at Best Buy, I was doing their geospatial mapping and of the inside of their spaces. And I did the same kind of work with other big retailers around the world. And they would think, they had this term called merchandising. And I learned that, and I was like, amazing. Like the idea that gaming machines make money is a little bit like saying to a retailer that the products on your shelf make money. They don't. It's when people buy them that they make money. And in an entertainment facility, you can influence who's there and you can yield who's there. And so like one of my favorite discussions to have with people was about occupancy, peak period especially. And you've got a group of games that are very popular. Oftentimes they're aristocrat. They're like these days, they're incredible product. Very occupied. They have an incredible following. And the people who follow that product won't play on other games. You go, okay. And it's actually a necessity that the opposite is also true. The people who play on the other games won't play aristocrat. It works both ways, right? It's really a profound statement. Oh, yeah, players on this game won't play that one. That also means the other one. They both have to be true at the same time. You can't have one without the other, just essentially. And so when you're doing your marketing, if you're promoting to these very high value customers for this wonderful aristocrat product, you're probably going to fill them, overfill them, and they're not going to find the product they want. So in fact, peak period marketing, you've got to look at all the different product areas in your space and say, okay, I have this product over here. Who plays on them? How can I increase them? And you may be able to afford to give more incentive to those different areas at different times than you have on your more popular games. So moving to merchandising changes it to a game performance to I've got a business unit. How do I get people who like that product in that area with the right level of incentive so they can have a great gaming experience?
A lot of these things that your programs and ones like it do so well, we knew. We just didn't apply the data properly. And that example you point out, I know people have taken a popular machine and they just looked at the occupancy of that machine over the last month and it said, it's only 40%. So we got plenty of those machines.
Yeah,
But they
right.
didn't look carefully to realize that at some parts of the day and some segments, it was
Yeah.
totally occupied. And they looked at some of the people who wanted to play it were their very best guests who couldn't get on the machine.
Yeah, that's a real
So
problem.
yes,
Yeah.
you may put more of those on and they may sit idle some parts of the day, But on other parts of the day, they're going to benefit your best players, and those players will have more repeat trips because they're happier playing that game instead of being forced to play a game they don't like. Hey,
Yeah,
I
my
mentioned.
well, oh, you
Go
go.
ahead.
Sorry.
I was
Oh,
going
I
to
was going to say
say
my
that
we
that
both
book
jump.
that book
You go.
says it's about math, but one of the I'm putting my marketing hat back on. The best chapter in that whole book is a thing called test and control.
Oh, right.
If I wanted to make any slot director or marketing person in the country better, I would say read that section on test and control. For those few of you out there who don't know what that is, meaning um, I know people, we've done a free campaign, we gave away a George Foreman grill, and our revenues went up 15%, which is great. And so they do 9 more George Foreman grill things. But what test and control means is, why don't you take some little subset of your customers and don't give them the grill and see what happens? And this is a really crude example, but it's totally accurate. You may have found out that they went up 15% too, because it had to do with the fact that they got
Weather.
a bonus check in the mail or it was payday or whatever. And so by doing tests like that, you may learn that promotion wasn't as effective as you thought, or maybe it was wildly more effective than you thought. But unless you do that test and control, you don't know that. And
Yeah,
that
I couldn't agree with
alone,
you more.
so
Yeah.
powerful, such a powerful metric to use on virtually everything you do. And you mentioned moving machines. Well, that's a great example of test and control too. So
It's a
not
little
as,
harder to get test and control, and that's why the change approach
yeah,
is so
exactly.
interesting
But
because you can change and change back.
well,
That can be your test and control.
you,
Not
you
many
gotta
do it.
you gotta
Yeah.
realize in marketing there's so many factors that influence it. What was happening last year? Were they paving the road in front of the casino last year? So the reason our promotion looks so good is because they're not paving the road anymore. Or was it snowing? Or we're in COVID? Or did everybody get a bonus check that week? Or how did the holiday affect it? Just so many things that have to be,
Well,
and
I'll tell you a
again, you
test and
always,
control story. So I'm
yeah.
working at Hollywood Aurora. Now, I'm pretty new in North America and new to database marketing, actually. And I was working with Alan Rosenzweig's team there. He's great brilliant marketing man. It really was amazing. I learned so much from him and his team. I think Chris Rellinger was there as well and also learned a lot from him. But I've always done machine learning and artificial intelligence and really sophisticated modeling. And I remember I was very proud. I went in to show them my models of how much their marketing was making. And I won't say who said it. They looked at me and they're like, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I missed something here because these were good models, right? It was very cool. Like I've done some really great analysis. And they're like looking at me and I'm like, have I done something silly? I'm like, yeah. Andrew, we're just going to do test and control. And I was like, I spent weeks just dealing with this. It's so profound. If you want to know the impact of change, it's if there is any possibility of doing test and control. If test and control can be done, right? And sometimes it's hard. So that put those cases aside, and this thing's called natural experiments, and there's other ways of doing it. But the reality is, test and control is the gold standard, and it gives you a bunch of metrics that tell you why it worked. It tells you about the reliability of your outcome. It doesn't just test and control just doesn't say, did it work? It says, with this level of statistical confidence, and for these kinds of reasons, like more people, the number of people, think different measures you can do. So it gives you this incredible way of understanding the confidence as well of your action. It's not just binary, did it work? Like, the range, the error function of it, did it work, if you like. And that learning, right, I've carried forward this whole time, that humbling moment of realizing that all the models that I've been doing, everything, all this cool AI that I was building, everything, all these really great heuristics, it's like, yeah, test and control is better. And it's the problem with test and control, buddy, is it requires a lot of work. You have to really work hard to get it out there. if you want to
Well,
comment on that. But
that's the
yeah,
great thing about AI, though. It can take that work cycle and shrink it, speed it, and make it quite a bit easier because the data is there, machine learning, everything. In fact, all these things we're talking about, player relationships, marketing, slots, we could always do that. We get out a pencil and a calculator, but each one of those decisions would take us months and months to finally get a conclusion. And guess what? Conditions may have changed before we could implement or do that. And now that data is almost instantaneously. I mean,
that's
we
right.
can
Yeah.
ask
And the
that whole
models are so
question
much
about
easier,
prompts.
and
Yeah, you're
AI
right.
can build models for you. It's just wild. Like
Yeah,
generative AI.
yeah.
AI for me, it's so interesting. People talk about AI. I studied AI at college and I practiced it, and I people are like, oh, that's not AI, and that is. And it's really, AI is a very broad field, and there are many different kinds of people who practice different parts of it, and they all call themselves AI practitioners. Who are we to question that? So what I think we need is we need to we've got generative AI, and we've got neural network models, and we've got traditional heuristic models and other things. We need different. We need to talk about the different kinds. There's a whole lexicon that comes with that. So, buddy, like, if you were going to give, like, you went through the big change last, I guess, last century. I don't know, the email and everything. You were talking about spreadsheets and that, and I don't know the spreadsheet that you used. Was it Lotus? Was that what it was? Was it Lotus 123?
Lotus 123, and before that, VisiCalc was the first one I used.
VisiCalc. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you've seen people who were left behind, right? That's like, I think it's a pretty true statement, a very true statement, that for the last 20 years, people have just been able to, because there's nothing really big. Maybe social media, but no, and maybe this, but no, maybe phones, no. That was a really incredible transformation. People either got on that boat or they didn't. Now, I think, yeah, what you're seeing it again. What's your advice? How,
Just keep up, keep curious is the biggest thing I can tell. Constantly be curious and be open to everything. If someone uh, I got to give a mea culpa. There's another reason why I'm really bragging about your book, and that's because at the very end of it, there's this thing called the glossary. And
oh
there's a
yeah,
reason why I wrote it for you. And I recently wrote an article about it. I said,
thank
hey,
you. Amazing glossary. Yeah,
well,
and
I
you
wrote
have
the article.
credit in the book for it as well. So,
Oh, thank you very much. But the reason I wrote it is I wrote a story just recently. Said I'd ask a lot of people, what version of SAS do you have? And they'd say, oh, we got 6.3 or whatever. And the reason they knew that was because vendors like yourself and system guys and people selling restaurant, they want to know what version so their software would be compatible with it. But then I asked, what is SAS? And I got this blank look. Here's a term everyone in the industry had been using for years and they didn't know what it meant. So I wrote a definition of it. And then I found out there was all kinds of terms like that that my
it's
colleagues and
become
friends
a
I knew
SAS is becoming a word. It's embarrassing. I was just trying to think, what is it? Oh my god! I
lot
know we're
accounting systems, and
it's
it
a
was
protocol, but it's a protocol.
it's a
So
protocol, and we
yeah,
used to have like 9 protocols. It was like a giant Tower of Babel because no system talked to another system.
oh my
And
god.
then everybody decided we can't do this, so they all kind of got together and said, okay, grudgingly, we'll use IGT standard. But it was so great. Today, that's going on with cashless. There's 15 different kinds, and hopefully someday everybody will say, let's just use one. But in those
Okay,
days,
so I have a question for you, buddy. Okay,
sure.
I say, I think we should finish on this because I think we're coming up to the hour. So I've got a question. You've seen all this change. You've seen everything that's happening, and one of the biggest questions in the industry, and it's there's always this: are millennials, and then it's the generation X, all the other new generation going to play? And I know you have an opinion on this, so why don't you share your view on it? Like, are they?
Without a doubt, I think they are. In fact, we're already seeing the trend. For the first time in history, the average age of our gamblers is starting to decrease. And I think there's multiple reasons. The games are better. Sports betting is getting them in the casinos. Casinos are still one of the fun places not on your phone to go and experience reality. But there's lots of examples I can point out of why I think it's happening. And one of the most interesting one is when I was growing up, everybody said our industry's dying. Look out on the floor. Most of these people are 50 or older, and there's no young people. And all these World War II veterans and everything. This is when I was like 22.
Oh
They're
yeah, yeah.
saying all these World War II veterans, they learned to gamble early on. They're not going to come in and play these slot machines. And guess what? I look at the slot floor today, and it's all a bulk of them, the majority of them are my age. They're baby boomers out there. There's a lot more Gen 2. But there was a great story written in Life magazine in 1950 said Las Vegas is petrified because they're losing things because all these World War II and none of the younger people are dying. I can send you that article out of
Please.
Life magazine from
I would like to share
1955.
that. Yeah.
And it said it's going away because no young people. Well, gambling is one of those things you got to mature. When I was 21, 22, 23, the only reason you might go to a casino is to see a concert or maybe meet some girls. You would never consider gambling. And you look at places like Circa now, and they're incredible social venues for young people, which I think we need. But part of it is as you get older, you have more spendable income. You don't risk as much. You've probably given up bungee jumping, and most people have given up martial arts, except for you, Andrew.
That's right.
And they,
Yeah.
they get a little more sedentary in their behavior, but they still want some excitement in their life, and they want safety and cleanliness and security and a good deal. So gambling appeals much more as you age, and I think that will always happen as,
Well, and I
sadly, I
think
hope
it's
millennials
also
someday
true.
have.
It has always happened.
Yes,
That's
yes, it
right.
has
That's
always happened. Will it in the future? Because people are scared about online gaming. I'm convinced that online gaming will do nothing but make our environment. My son has a richer, remember I mentioned I mark Keno tickets with crayons? Well, my son is playing fantasy football since he's been a tyke. And young people have a sort of a gambling gene in them that I think is even stronger than we had through things like fantasy football or little leagues they play
yeah,
or these
maybe.
kinds of
Yeah.
things. So I think gambling as a whole will be healthy as long as we get our hand on responsible gaming. And I know your programs like yours help us out with that.
I think it's
But
really important. The
yeah,
responsible part of it, like the safety
yep,
and everything that goes with these facilities. Sometimes I worry about online gaming. I've seen what's happened in Europe and other countries, and then I think about that. But we'll leave that discussion for another day.
yeah. But
Um,
your answer
uh,
is I think young people will gamble, and I think our future is healthy just based on growth. Look at all the casino growth we've seen in our career, Andrew.
yeah, oh, goodness. Thank you. Well, buddy, thank you. You're such a great friend. It's always really great talking with you because you are very curious, and I think we share that exploration together. We shared a lot of things together over the last 20 years. It's amazing. Thank you.
We were
This is
almost
Andrew.
killed on a we were almost killed together on a Mexican fishing trip once.
Yeah. I still have heart palpitations
I'll
about
I'll
that.
leave that story for another time.
That was frightening. Yeah, I don't know how we got out of that. Yeah, there was a lot of guys with machine guns. Yeah, and 50 calibers. This is, you don't argue with them. I think that's how we got out of it. Okay, look, thank you, buddy. We'll leave those stories for another time. Thank you very much. This is Andrew Cardno Online. Great to chat. I hope you got something out of this. Share your comments, and we look forward to sharing more interesting and maybe challenging stories about what's happened in the industry.
Thanks, Andrew.